This video is sponsored by the following people. Please click the links in the description below.
Catcheside, and this is Catcheside Cutlery, and I've been forging a long time, nearly 20 years, so I've accrued quite a lot of gear from my forging days, and then I went into blades more than sort of 13, 14 years ago maybe. Gradually evolved into bladesmithing, so we've got like a nice big welding forge with sort of upside down system, so the gas comes in and makes a nice even heat around the billet, and that's just for welding up materials, this one. We've got my longest running hammer, the first Anyang that John, I think it was probably the first one, John might correct me. It's an Anyang 40, and this has been long time abuser since I started out, so it's been running for years and years. It's a little beauty. Well, as you've seen, it whacks the stock out really effectively. I've sort of made this more into a central area now, so I've got everything around me that I need. I've got my anvil. This was a join to that table, so that was one huge table that weighed about 3 tons for assembling gates and things like that. But this is the bit that's made out of sort of 25mm plate, so it's a perfect forge area table. You could weld things to it, jig things up on it, hammer things on it. And attached to that, welded to it, in fact, I've got my leg vise. So if you needed to, and in fact I would a lot in my blacksmithing days, is hop up on the table and whack things in the vise. And quite simply next to there, I've got, you know, a nice bit of oak for that's slightly dished for my straightening and stuff like that. So I'll literally, I've just bent that one. So, and then good old fly press, which are great things to have, and I can't be asked to tool them up for different things, so this is purely set up for integral bolster stuff, so that's for pinching out the tang and leaving as square a shoulder as possible before forging the tang down in the power hammer. And then in the sort of forging circle, so all fairly close, so I can get to the machines. Got my big, very open C-frame press, and this was probably some sort of cold forming press, and I've had this for about as long as I've had the hammer, you know, getting on 20 years. It's, yeah, about 25 ton, something like that. It's got it does a bit of forging. It's just about quick enough for forging, and it's got a very quick return. It does the job, but not really a forging press. I more sort of fling tooling under it. I will forge larger blocks out under it if I need to get them down below sort of 60mm to forge out in there, then this will squeeze them out quite well. So yeah, this is the sort of forging circle. So yeah, that went really nicely. I see the press gives it a pretty even finish. I wasn't really, doesn't need to be completely even, but say if I'm doing stacks and restacks of Damascus, I don't really need to grind. I just give it a nice square, even finish in the press, and then chuck it in acid, clean all the scale off, and saves any grinding. Woohoo! But on those last heats of that, because it's sort of a lot of heat pumped into it, that grain's like super massive. say if I just forged a blade out of that now without ever properly heat cycling it, if you managed to do that, you would probably heat cycle it to some degree while you're forging it out. Just can catch you out if you've had something at a high heat and some part of it manages to, I've cracked tangs say by messing up and something had a fairly exploded grain. You can crack the thing. I might just flux the edge one more time. I think I'm just going to protect the edges whilst I do this final draw, mainly from any loss of carbon from the edges. Yeah, I'm not concerned with welding now, it's welded and I'm just going to draw it out, and as long as you work the sides evenly, drawing out is working the sides equally to the at the same time as drawing the thing down. So it's all, if you just flatten the thing out, then you might overlap, you might have some grinding back to do. We're going to forge cleavers. I think that's what we're going to forge. And I'll do a fat one, a fat geometry one, and a super thin one. Well, maybe not super thin, because as I say, maybe the cladding will harden a bit more than I thought. So, medium thin. Cherry colour, that's about it. So another nice thing about a power hammer, rather than a press, is that you can do heat cycling without sucking all the heat out of it. So as you saw, the press will just suck all the heat out of it like that. But when you come into big blocks, and like if I've done like over 100mm square blocks of feather Damascus before, and then the only, like a loaf like that, like 100mm, and the only thing I've got to work it down is that press. And when you've got a big chunk, it forges it really well. It's not really a forging press, but that's the only thing that I can work it down with into like a 50mm bar. So really effective at that. So I've got my materials, which in both cases, I've got two lots of materials actually. One is my normal iron and 1.2442 high carbon tungsten steel, which is good.
If you want to know when the next video is out, like, subscribe and make sure you click the bell notification. I appreciate your support.